They told us schools were safe. They told us churches were sacred. They told us children would always be protected. But on Wednesday morning, inside Annunciation Catholic School in South Minneapolis, those promises were shattered in an instant. The bell rang. Children filed into the pews for a simple school mass, a quiet morning ritual meant to inspire faith, community, and hope. At 8:15 a.m., while their parents trusted they were safe, the sound of gunfire tore through the church. 2 children, just 8 and 10 years old, were gunned down where they prayed. 17 others were hurt, 14 of them kids, classmates who will carry the scars of that morning for the rest of their lives. The gunman, a man in his 20s, came armed with multiple weapons. He walked into a house of God knowing exactly what he planned to do. And when the violence stopped, he turned the gun on himself. His death ended his attack, but not the damage, not the grief, not the anger, not the questions no parent, no teacher, no neighbor should ever have to ask. Mayor Jacob Frey stood before reporters and told the public, "Don't say this is about thoughts and prayers." His words cut through the air like glass, because this wasn't just another tragic headline. This wasn't an isolated moment. This was a message, a wake-up call. But who is really listening? And how many times do we need to hear it before anything changes? Inside those pews were children who woke up that morning thinking about homework, about recess, about lunchboxes and field trips, not life or death. They were in the safest place they knew, and still they were hunted. What are we telling our kids when even their faith can't protect them? When even their prayers are interrupted by gunfire? What are we telling parents when dropping their children off at school is a gamble? Police Chief Brian O'Hara gave his update to the press, detailing weapons, timelines, injuries. His voice was steady, but behind his eyes there was no mistaking the weight. Another investigation, another scene marked by yellow tape and shell casings, another community grieving. The chief confirmed what we already knew. The shooter didn't care who he killed, and yet we still don't seem to care enough to stop this from happening again. Listen closely to the silence that follows these events, the hollow silence after the sirens fade, when the news cameras leave, when the candles burn low at the vigils. That's when parents go home to empty bedrooms, unopened lunchboxes, and tiny shoes by the door that will never be worn again. That's when survivors wake up screaming from dreams that sound like gunfire. That's when a city asks itself how this could happen, while knowing deep down why it keeps happening. This is more than a headline. It is more than politics. It is more than statistics. It is a human failure, a failure to protect the most innocent among us, a failure to confront what we all know but pretend not to see. Because this wasn't just one man with guns. This was years of looking away, years of saying it won't happen here, years of thinking it's someone else's problem, until it wasn't, until it was our children, our city, our turn to bury the dead. And still, even now, people will argue. They will point fingers. They will talk about security doors, mental health, Second Amendments, and bad apples. They will do everything but look into the faces of 2 dead children and admit that we, as a society, failed them. What are your excuses worth when parents have to plan funerals instead of birthday parties? What does your silence cost when it's paid for in blood? Mayor Frey was right. This is not about thoughts and prayers, but that's exactly what people will say. They'll post their condolences. They'll say the victims are in a better place. They'll hold moments of silence that last less time than the shooting itself. And then they'll move on.
The question isn't how this happened. We know how it happened. The question is, why do we let it keep happening? Why are we so comfortable sacrificing children to a culture that values weapons more than lives? Why do we tell ourselves nothing can be done when other countries have proven otherwise? Why do we let the story end the same way every single time, with police tape, press conferences, and tiny caskets lowered into the ground? 2 names will be added to the growing list of children killed where they should have been safest. 17 others will live with bullet wounds, nightmares, and the memory of classmates bleeding beside them on a church floor. Their parents will never forget the sound of the phone call telling them their child is gone. Their city will never forget the sight of another crime scene at a school. But you, watching this, will you forget? When the next tragedy comes, will you feel anything at all? Or are we already so numb that dead children no longer shock us? Maybe that's the most terrifying part. Not the shooter, not the guns, but our own willingness to accept this as normal. You can tell yourself it's complicated. You can tell yourself it's political. You can tell yourself it's hopeless. But tonight, somewhere in Minneapolis, 2 sets of parents are staring at their children's empty beds, wondering why no one protected them. And no amount of thoughts, no amount of prayers, no amount of excuses will bring them back. So we're left with one haunting question. When the next child dies, will you still do nothing?
Until the next time. And there will be a next time, because there's always a next time.